right, so Martin, when the central bank digital currency comes into effect, that's not the mark of the beast.
Nope.
It's got nothing to do with the actual worship. It's just a tool to implement it,
Yes,
to enforce it.
To get you to do what they want.
Now let's get these gentlemen to tell us what their plans are.
And the one final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it, or a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable.
And we will adhere to the law. That is what this platform will do. So if somebody says does something illegal, then they will be suspended. If they do not do something illegal, then we will try our best to avoid any kind of permanent bans unless someone does something fundamentally illegal.
Elon, I don't know.
We're just trying to stay true to the Constitution of the United States in America and the laws of the country as decided by the citizens.
Net zero. Who would have thought that they would impose fines if you didn't comply? So, just like you, Les, in the latest development, we could be fined and or criminalised if we don't go along with the upgrades that they're forcing us, mainly at our own expense, to make. So, say, for example, you fall foul of regulations to reduce your energy consumption, you could face up to a year in prison and fines of up to £15,000. Or, if you fail to submit the correct information of what you're using, you could also be prosecuted for provision of false information about energy efficiency or for the obstruction of an enforcement authority.
All right, these are the threatenings and the rumblings of the system. Does this mean they're going to force you to do something?
Yes, so for instance, the free speech king, Elon Musk, also said that they will have to, are they doing censorship according to the laws of the land?
So once the law of the land changes, then they will censor accordingly.
Accordingly. And so, like the other guy in the beginning said, the digital currency is there to coerce you or to force you. They can decide, can you use your money on certain things or not? And then, like we've also seen before, if you don't adhere, if your carbon footprint are too big, they can switch off your money.
Does Sunday become part of the carbon footprint?
That's the thing. It is already in the Laudato Si and in the new one that the Pope...
So I suggest you start practicing so that you no longer breathe on Sundays.
Yeah.
So that you don't have a carbon footprint.
Yeah.
That's how ridiculous they are. By the way, this kind of censorship and coercion, who's the master of it all? Who's been practicing that for millennia?
No, the papacy.
The papacy, right? Do they censor?
Oh, for sure.
And do they censor truth?
The whole time. The whole Inquisition was brought about because of this.
Of censoring truth. You weren't allowed to quote the Bible. You weren't allowed to possess a Bible. If you did, you were persecuted. So if you believe the Bible today, what then?
Then you're in trouble because you're a fundamentalist.
Then you're a fundamentalist. I'm so proud I believe the Bible. I'm so proud that they will call me a fundamentalist because they are contrary to every tenet of the word.
Absolutely.
Now, Martin, if you say something long enough, people will become convinced that it's actually the truth, right? You repeat a lie over and over, eventually it becomes truth in the minds of people.
In the minds, yes.
So how many people actually believe that this digital currency and 666 is associated with the mark of the beast?
Well, millions.
All right, let's have a look at some of the role players and see what they say.
Like one day in the future, everything will be traceable.
That's right. And that's, this is where being raised an Episcopalian. In the book of Revelations, as a Christian, you're going to read it. This is where I get scared because it's too similar to the mark of the beast. It's too similar to exactly what it says. You won't be able to trade. You won't be able to do anything unless you have the mark, unless you bear the mark. So
what is that in that term how is that described? How is the mark of the beast described in the Bible? We should read it because I think you're onto something.
the mark of the beast, it's like you can't do anything, you can't sell. I mean, that's that. Like if you remove the ability to trade currency in a private way,
yeah,
you are now controlled. You are now monitored.
It also causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. Charagma, translated as mark of the beast in Revelation 13:16, can also mean any mark engraved, imprinted, or branded, stamped money, document, or coin. The mark of the beast is interpreted differently across the four main views of Christian eschatology.
Now, did you notice the fundamental flaw in their argument?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can buy or sell unless they have the mark.
Yes.
That's scripture.
Exactly.
So buying and selling cannot be the mark.
Yes, because you can only not buy and sell if you take the mark.
So the mark is nothing to do with the buying and selling. It's only a means to implement the mark.
Yes.
So they are equating the buying and selling the digital currency with the mark. No, because that goes into effect if you refuse to receive the mark.
Yes. So, and we must remember, this Joe Rogan, and we're going to show the other ones as well, got huge audiences of millions of people watching.
So they're very influential. So let's have a look at the others, movers and shakers, like Glen Beck, for example.
Nobody knows the time, we're all told. But I mean, if you're a Christian and you haven't at least thought that maybe there's a lot of prophecy being fulfilled here, maybe this is the time. I talked to Pat earlier this morning and he said, I always thought it would be more obvious if this is the time, the mark of the beast. Is that CBDC? I don't know. What is it? It could be anything. And he said, I always thought it would be more clear, but it's not. Maybe it becomes more clear, but you can tell the difference between good and evil. Most people can still do that, although many, listen to hour one of this broadcast, many cannot.
Same mistake, right?
Same mistake. You see, they cannot, and maybe they're ignorant because I'm sure that a lot of people are giving the truth to them.
I wish somebody would give them the great controversy.
Well, I think Glenn has acknowledged that he's received over 500 copies of it over the past years.
Well, I wish you would read it.
I wish you would read it. Then you will put the puzzle together.
The puzzle is very distinct. It's an issue of worship. And if it's an issue of worship, then it's also an issue of obedience to the requirements of God.
Yes.
As opposed to the requirements of the beast. And the beast has to be in rebellion against God.
Exactly. And the thing is that, some of these people, like Glenn just said, everybody must start realizing
there's something going on.
There's something going on. And a lot of the things that they try and put together, it makes sense. But they must just get the final part, the cherry on the top, and then everything will make sense. And they can be very strong voices for the truth.
They talk about the beast. They talk about the worship of the beast. But they're concentrating on the control.
Yes.
Which is just a method.
It's just a method. It's just part of the other side. There's two sides that's actually controlling this whole thing.
Yes.
Behind, the papacy sits behind it. But both sides, the globalists, as they call them, and the other ones that seem to be the heroes, are all part of this whole thing.
And they miss the central point, which is worship. And the Bible is very clear. Whom you obey, That's the one who you are actually paying homage to. That's worshipping. So Martin, if I could only put it together.
But isn't it amazing that in all these huge talk shows or podcasts, they're talking about the same thing? Everywhere, even in the news, they're talking about this. So definitely we are on in a place in history we have not been before.
Correct. So just because we said these people should all get the great controversy, if they don't want to read it, can we read a portion for them?
Let's read it for them.
The mark of the beast. When Sunday observance shall be enforced by law, will it be done under the auspices of religion and climate change?
Oh, for sure, definitely.
And the world shall be enlightened concerning the obligation of the true Sabbath, then whoever shall transgress the command of God to obey a precept which has no higher authority than that of Rome, will thereby honor popery above God. He is paying homage to Rome and the power which enforces the institution ordained by Rome. He is worshipping the beast and his image. As men then reject the institution which God has declared to be the sign of his authority, and honor in its stead that which Rome has chosen as a token of her supremacy, they will thereby accept the sign of allegiance to Rome, the mark of the beast. And it is not until the issue is thus plainly set before the people and they are brought to choose between the commandments of God and the commandments of men that those who continue in transgression will receive the mark of the beast. They don't know yet.
No.
So they haven't received the mark of the beast.
No.
But if it's plain and they begin to understand it and they still decide for the beast, then they receive the mark of the beast.
So what does this tell us? There's still time.
There's still time. We must still preach. We must preach louder.
Yeah, and we must get to these people and try and show them the truth.